The stress of the day and burdened by the ongoing tensions with Ra, Isis stepped away from her place of duty, thinking and pondering. It had been many years since Isis saw her brothers and sisters. In the velvet starry night, sitting out on the deck of her palace, emotionally sad, she thought of her home, Atlantis, and her mother, Purity, wishing she could be whole again. Isis, thinking, you can have the whole world in your hands, but it cannot fill the void in your heart like the spirit of family and home can. For what the world gives is not eternal. Only the spirit of family and home is eternal. That covenant of promise with each other, that law of spirit written on our hearts. Mother, even if I don't find you in this world, I know you live in my heart. Our hearts beat as one. I will always remember your ways and the law you gave. Finishing her thoughtful prayer, she closes out the night, bidding the stars and moon good night. Morning broke, and with it came a shout from outside the palace. Isis, startled, ran to her deck, and there before her were what appeared to be fiery chariots standing stationary in mid-air. Two of her guards came to warn her of the possible danger. The bold spirit in Isis spoke up and commanded, "Prepare the men, let us go down and see who flies these fiery chariots." "Perhaps the gods?" asked the guards. "Perhaps," said Isis. And so they went. "The flaming chariots of the gods!" shouted the people of Isis. From the chariots came forth the Arya, and with them Danu. The crowd fell to their knees in awe of the Arya. Isis, looking toward Danu, asked, "Who are you?" Danu, in her blazing radiance, said, "I am looking for my lost brothers and sisters. I am the one they called Comforter and Protector. Our mother was deceived and murdered by a force of great power, a force of great evil. The king of darkness, Enlil, is still on the move. I am here to unite the 10 and fulfill my vow of vengeance. I am Danu of Atlantis." With wide eyes, the tension and skepticism left Isis within seconds after Danu spoke. Happy to be reunited, they made merry and celebrated all day, catching up on the missing years. Isis had told Danu about her brothers Ra and El, and the battles she was having with Ra. "Tomorrow we leave and travel north to the kingdom of Ra, and from there to El's kingdom. We shall settle this problem and mend what was broken," exclaimed Danu. "We cannot just walk up to Ra's palace. It won't be easy," doubted Isis. "Oh, don't worry, my sister. We can battle the gods with chariots of fire," smiled Danu. Danu, Isis, and the Arya set off to the kingdom of Ra. When they arrived, they marveled King Ra with great power and glory, and the love between them was mended. The raging fire between Ra and Isis were put out by the holy waters of Danu, for she was great in wisdom and words of healing. An hour into the celebration, El appeared. Surprised to see a big celebration, he warned everyone in a strong voice of El's coming forces.
You are celebrating? And you are unaware of Enlil's presence? He has taken over my kingdom! Calm yourself, my brother,
said Ra, with exclamations of great joy. Ra pointed to the 8 siblings.
Great news! Our family is whole again! Your sister, Danu, and the others are here!
El, surprised to see his lost siblings, embraced them in great joy. They were finally reunited, and the completion of the whole radiated throughout the whole kingdom of Ra. Happy to be one again, they knew they had an enemy to defeat. Meanwhile, deep in the desert night, a raging screech echoed from the forces of doom. Archons, jinn, and wraiths clothed in darkness and fire. Enlil in his deep, rumbling, archonic tongue.
As I have thrown down the mother of all living, and smote her ruin upon the mountainside of the north, so shall I smite her children with all my powers. A crack in what seemed to be the very fabric of reality shook the revelers to the core. A monstrous noise alighted from the sky like the sound of metal grating against bone. In a dizzying flash of light that lit up the night sky like the sun, vessels appeared, dark and foreboding and full of wrath. Enlil, El managed to say, his voice cracking. He has come for us! Run! No sooner had he said that than the first red rays were emitted from the craft. The scene that had just moments ago been a glorious reunion was now carnage and chaos. Many of the revelers were dead when the first beams from the ship struck them down. The 10 children of the Divine Feminine had managed to escape to their ships, all but the youngest of the 10, the one born Malkuth, known by her siblings as May, who had straggled behind her brothers and sisters. As El entered the Aryan ship, he noticed that his sister had been left behind. Looking out over the desert, he saw that Enlil's ship had landed, and that Enlil himself was coming down the gangplank. Ra! Enlil screamed into the bows of the ship. Protect them! Get them out of here! As El began back down the gangplank, he could see Enlil approaching May. Suddenly he was stopped.
No, father.
El's eldest daughter reached out and grabbed her father's shirt.
Don't go. You're still unwell.
El looked into his daughter's eyes for what he feared would be the last time. Take care of your sister, El said, the emotion catching in his voice. Ra!
I hear you, El.
It was Danu's voice who responded from the direction of the flight deck.
Go.
El broke the grip of his daughter and charged forward. In a leap, he jumped from the ship as the door closed behind him. A wisp of air, and the ship hovered and was gone. Enlil stood meters away, towering over the young May that had fallen to the ground. Get away from her! El gasped as he had run full speed towards them, sword at the ready. Ha ha ha! Enlil mocked him. What is it that you are going to do? Wait a second. Is that you, El? How decrepit and old you look. Why, you have aged years since our last encounter, but your foolish valor is in vain. I will take this one's chi, her vril force I will drain, kill her. And you too, you old fool. Perhaps, El countered, but not without a fight. An epic battle commenced, but El was weak from his journey. He gave a valiant effort with all his heart, but knew there was no stopping Enlil. As he could not gain the upper hand in battle, El, near death and barely standing on his feet, tried a new tactic. He would speak to the god that once lived in harmony with his family. I remember, Enlil, what you once were. El spoke laboriously, trying to reach a heart that he feared had become entirely black with power. I remember how you loved us, dear uncle. Whatever happened to that man? You waste your breath, tired old man, Enlil said, emotionless. Your uncle that once loved your family is dead, as you soon will be. Then all is lost. El threw down his sword, and looking at his sister who cringed behind him, El, the only thing separating her and certain death. Soon, dear sister, El looked into May's desperate young face. We will be united again with our mother. Enlil's blow was swift, that took the life of El. Now, child, Enlil turned on May as she lay in his feet in terror. Your vril is mine. Enlil struck his hand out in the ancient technique to draw May's raw, untapped power from her. A painful process. May began to shriek in agony. Occupied by his victim, Enlil did not hear the army that arrived in colossal steel chariots built from the remains of the city of Atlantis. The army of the 10 children of the divine purity, she who was once called Sophia. A shot cracked the fabric of the night desert. It ripped into Enlil's chest. The shot came from the war machine that was piloted by the one who had sworn vengeance against the evil one all those years ago.
I got you, Enlil.
Danu speaking out loud, although no one but she could hear it.
Now my vengeance will be sated.
The war machines came to a stop as Enlil knocked back away from May with a piercing projectile to the chest, had his spell broken by the deathly delivered blow from Danu's war machine. Danu, seeing Enlil knocked back, came to a grinding halt and sprung from the machine, sword in hand.
I will kill you, Enlil, and your name shall be spoken no more.
Danu screamed, sprinting towards Enlil. No! Ra, who had stopped his war machine next to his sister, called out to stop her. May! Think of May! He is still capable of harming her! Danu, in her rage, did not hear her brother's call, as she was within 10 meters of where Enlil, wounded, but getting to his feet, stood. Enlil, his spell broken but not his evil intent, rose and struck May with one fell swoop, taking her life, if not her vril. You children will never defeat me! Enlil, in a rage, screamed to the high heaven and leveled his gun at Danu. You have a sword, little girl, but with this ancient weapon, I need not be any nearer than this to snuff out your life. With that, Enlil pulled the trigger of the ancient device. The shot hit Danu square in the head. Ra and Isis and the other children of the Most High saw this from far off, but could tell that the life force of their two sisters and brother were gone. They felt it, a hole in the core of their being. "God damn you, Enlil!" Ra bellowed out in his grief and rage. "Kill him! Kill him now!" Brothers and sisters commenced to firing their war machine at Enlil, but suddenly the Archons, who thus far had stood by watching the fight, now sprung into action. A powerful spell, one used at the beginning of time, one taught to them by their father, Yaldabaoth, the Demiurge. They groaned in unison. The spell created a protection wall for Enlil and silenced the siblings' war machine. A last gasp, to be sure, but effective. The children could feel the demons sucking their life's blood, the vril from them. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Enlil and his Archons had seemed to vanish into thin air, but in reality, the spell had transported them to a netherworld, a place where they could heal and regroup, a place they called Tartarus. Ra and Isis and the remaining children of purity burned their sisters May and Danu and their brother El with great honor in a funeral pyre. Isis and Ra joined their warring kingdoms together to form the most powerful empire the world had seen since the death of Atlantis, the Empire of the Nile. Although much of the vril had escaped with Enlil and his minions, they still had enough to stand as powerful gods. Gods that would one day die, but not until their great empire flourished and prospered. In darkness, Danu awoke. How long had she been dreaming? Where was she? All about her was dark. She remembered suddenly what she had done. She had let her anger and revenge take her and her sister from the world. She began to weep bitter tears.
"Do not weep, my daughter."
A voice from the darkness consoled her. She opened her eyes to a new light, first blinding, then an outline of a face. Her mother stood before her.
"We will all be gods again, my dearest, but now we must work for it."